Hi, I'm the Moorlander and this is Moorlander EDC. A little bit fluid today, so I will apologise about that in advance. Hopefully it doesn't come across too much. So today we are here to look at my top 5 Swiss Army knives or sacks. So before we start, I think it's important to state a few things. First one is that this is my list, not yours, although I would love to hear yours, so let's hear yours down in the comments below. You may have a differing top 5, and that's what makes us beautiful, because we are all different and have our own opinions. That's the first point. Second point is, this list is ever evolving, so the way I do this, rather than basing it on knives that I don't own, these are knives that I do own, so I could maybe pick one out in a few months' time and think, do you know what, this has probably bumped another one off the list. So maybe it's an ever-evolving thing, but this is purely off knives and tools that I own rather than ones that I don't own. But again, I'm always open to hearing about new Victorinox tools that I should add to this. Third one is, maybe the way that I say it, people have pulled me up on this before, Victorinox. I know sometimes I say Victorinox. You'll just have to get over that bit. But for now, you know, let's turn the camera around and take a closer look at my top 5. Now, while I'm doing this, if at any point you do enjoy this content, please feel free to hit the like, subscribe and share. That would be amazing. And if you do choose to do that, I'd like to say thank you. I do appreciate that. It certainly does help my channel to grow, and also for the YouTube algorithm and so much more. So yes, let's get the camera turned around and take a closer look. So I think a few things before I start. I think one thing definitely to say is that these aren't in any particular order, apart from maybe this first one. So this one that we're having a look here first is the Pioneer, which is the an ALOX version. The reason that I'm putting this one first is, for me, the Pioneer, having looked at all of the different versions and models, and even between the ALOX versions and the old school ones with the cherry red scales, I just liked the idea, one, of the ALOX versions. And again, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but the difference between the ALOX and the other versions is that ALOX all have opening tools on one side, but they also have this aluminium oxide scale instead. But also, having looked at all of the different versions, I felt that the tools on this one probably just suited me a little bit more than other tool sets, which is probably something, having looked at these when I've took them all out and realised that the tools are very similar on them. So what we have on here, we have a cutting blade. On this tool here on the end, there is a can opener, and also there is a small flathead screwdriver here on the end. We then have a bottle opener with a larger flathead screwdriver on there, and then this small notch on the inside here is actually a wire cutter. You can put a wire into there, put that down on it and then twist it, and that will help to strip your wire. And then the last tool on here, well, second to last, because they actually class this little loop here as a tool, which yeah, anyway, you have an awl. The awls on the ALOX versions are definitely a lot stronger and definitely are a lot heavier built than some of the non-ALOX versions as well. One thing definitely, if you're certainly new to Swiss Army knives, to point out is, if you're thinking of getting into these, I've been bitten more by these knives than any other knife possible, and that's because the springs on these are crazy. So you get to about there and it really does snap in. So if you're thinking of getting into Swiss Army knives, just be careful of that issue. I think we just slipped out of focus there. So that, my first one there is the Pioneer. Now, the second one that I'm going to bring in, hopefully you probably notice, is very similar. So the one that we have here, number 2, and again, after the Pioneer, these aren't in any particular or certain order, is we have the, oh, sorry, dog's just run away, is we have the Electrician. Now, the Electrician, pound for pound is pretty much identical to the Pioneer. The only difference is that with the Electrician, the lanyard loop, which they consider to be an additional tool, is removed, and instead of the can opener you have this small utility style knife here. Now I actually find that I use this knife, I put all these back in because you need to be able to do it in a certain order to get them out, but I find I use this knife a lot, mainly because of just how small and useful it is. So I'm guessing, I mean, I'm not an electrician myself, but to be able to do small jobs where you need to get and strip wires and lots of little intricate bits that you're going to need to do, it's better to have a small knife like this. Now, if you look at other outdoors kind of things like whittling, pruning, all of those sort of things, you generally tend to have a shorter knife. That's because when you're pinching up on it and you're trying to do smaller, more smaller activities that need a little bit more finesse, a shorter, stouter knife make that just a little bit easier to be able to do. The larger knife, again, you know, like with the Pioneer, the larger knife is great to be able to cut into things. However, the smaller Electrician's side of it certainly makes a lot of those activities a lot easier. So that's number 2. After that, we take a step down. So the Pioneer that we can see here, I forget the exact measurements. This comes at 92 or 93 millimeters, and then we have the Cadet. So the Cadet, which just randomly is going out of focus, I do apologise about that. The Cadet is very similar to the Pioneer. However, it's just a scaled down version. I think this comes in at 82 millimeters. So you have your bottle opener with a flathead and the wire cutter, you have your can opener, you have the knife, and then just as an extra little tool, which is great for a small knife like this, certainly if you need to attend to sort of hygiene and that sort of stuff, you can do your nails on there. It's also good for striking ferro rods, but there's a small file and a nail cleaner to be able to do there. I quite like the Cadet mainly due to its size, so this thing's really does slip into things a lot easier than some of the other knives do. Now, I think that is, again, you know, one of the beauty of Swiss Army knives, and it comes down to the engineering with these. There's very little space that's within these that's not used with intelligence. So when they're packed away, just like this, it becomes a very small and easy knife to be able to carry around for EDC. So that's the Cadet. Then we have my next venture, which really goes from the Alox knives. So you know, I do kind of prefer the Alox knives as a whole, but the version that we have here is the Hiker. So with the Hiker, you get the same 2 tools with the bottle opener and the can opener. You get the knife on there, and then there is an additional little knife here, which again, similarly to the Electrician. Some of these are so hard to get in. So similarly to the Electrician, it's great to be able to have this small knife. So if you're wanting to do smaller, finer duties, then you can do that with this, knowing full well that you've got a closer pinch up against the blade, so that you can do those more subtle activities with ease. One of the additions that you get with the Hiker, though, if I pull this one out through the middle, is you get a decent saw on there as well. So if you're out and about and you're preparing a campfire, maybe you need some smaller logs so that you can cut through those, the Hiker does an incredibly good job of that. Now, as this is one of the cherry red scale ones, this is one of the first ones where we start to look at tools on the back. There is a flathead, sorry, there is a Phillips head screwdriver here, and there is an awl. Now, as I mentioned, so the awls on these, oh, come out, couldn't find the thumbnail there. So the awls on these are definitely not as weightier as they are on some of the Alox versions. If I get this one out, where are you? There you are. Hopefully you'll be able to see the difference with these. It's a shame that this eye hole isn't included here on the Alox versions. I think that's one thing that the Alox versions really do need. But when I think of the reasons between the two, I mean, if you were to put this into a piece of wood and keep turning it, it does a very good job of digging into that. This, if you did it into a piece of wood, it does a good job, but definitely it's not as aggressive as this one. Whereas for things like leather work, I think that's why on these, on the hiker, that this doesn't need to be as thick. So maybe you are out camping, you need to put a hole through a piece of material so that you can make a tarp or something. Then you can do that, and with that eye hole, it'll help you to pass some rope or twine or something through that. There are some additional tools on this one. So you have a small toothpick here, which you can buy these to replace them, and then on the back there are the tweezers. I find Victorinox tweezers, they're just a bit weird because really they're quite difficult to be able to get any sort of grip on things, but I'm sure there's someone somewhere that's life was saved from a porcupine with a Victorinox set of tweezers. Last thing that I keep on here, so I keep showing these off, but these are the tack pulls from Ventum Gear. The best thing about these is because they're so flat, if it's in something you want to grab it, it's in your pocket, you can do. But if you want to put this into a small pouch or a slip like some of the ones that we looked at recently, because they sit perfectly flat against the side, or even if it does wrap around it, it's the length of a piece of, the thickness of a piece of Cordura. So they're really useful and great at being able to pull things out. Definitely I recommend having a look at Ventum Gear so that you can see a little bit more from their tack pulls. Now the last one is the Spartan, and I don't know why I didn't pull these out first hand, but the Spartan, hopefully as I start to get these out, you will see a very similar tool set on here. Now this is the all black onyx Spartan. So instead of the cherry red scales, you have this beautiful black scales. Shout out to Steve C Designs. I won this as part of a giveaway. Yeah, it's awesome. Definitely check out Steve C Designs. He's a top fella, and yeah, worth a look at. But similar tools. So you've got your bottle opener and bottle opener and stripper and can opener, flathead. You've got that small utility knife, and then the larger normal cutting blades there. You still also have your tweezers. You have the little toothpick. There is additionally, oh, here we go. There is also an awl on here as well. Now, the one thing that I've definitely never used, I think in this day and age, there's not a lot of use for cork bottle openers. However, it's there, it's useful. Maybe if there was a piece of wood stuck in another piece of wood, you could screw that in and pull it out. But for me, I've just never used one of these. But I think other than that, you know, the form and the factor of this one, especially because it's got that beautiful black finish, which does show up scratches a little bit more, you really can't go wrong with the fifth option on here, which is the Spartan. Now there is another, and I'm going to bring this one in mainly because I think this one deserves an honourable mention. Because whenever I'm talking about tools, the one thing that I harp on about the most is about how much I use scissors more than I use pliers on things like multi-tools. So I think it would go for an honourable mention that I would have to talk about the Pioneer X. So the Pioneer X has all of the tools of the Pioneer. You know, I can bring all of these out. We've got the ones. This is a featured tool set that you have definitely seen a lot of today. So they're all the different tools on the Pioneer X. But the Pioneer X has that extra, which I always find a chore to get out, and that is that it has some scissors. So I have to say, hopefully you might agree with me on this one, but I'd love to hear if you think otherwise. Victorinox scissors are possibly the best scissors on multi-tools that you can get out there. They do an incredibly good job. I wish I'd got some paracord with me, but I would say that as far as the paracord cut test, I've never had any issues with paracord cut tests with Victorinox scissors. They are that good. There's very little torque, there's very little rotational force, so the pins that are in here, one, they're very smooth, so you get a nice smooth action. The springs are great as well, but you don't get any of that, or at least you get less rotational force that wants to push these apart. So my honourable mention today goes to the Pioneer X. I have to say, I like Swiss Army knives. I think Victorinox do an amazing job, especially with the engineering that goes into these. Now, they've been doing it for a long time, so you'd expect that for a lot of newer knives, they can quite easily cookie cutter new knives into existence. In fact, I don't know if they still do this, but there's a lot, or at least there used to be. I'd love to hear if there is. Maybe that's a future piece of content. You can go to the certain Victorinox shops and make your own knife. You know, it's all there. You can decide how many layers and da. I just think they're great. I think as far as form and function, there's plenty of different versions of them out there for everybody to find one. Well, I like that one, but I wish it had this. And then someone will go, well, actually, that's this knife, and you go, brilliant. I'll take 3 of those, one in every colour. So yeah, I think they do an exceptionally good job. I just realised I'm looking down there and now I'm annotating instead of actually talking about what I should be talking about. But here they all are. Here is my top 5 plus 1 as an honourable mention. How did you like it? What do you think of my list? I'd love to hear your list in the description below, or maybe some ones that I should think about more so in adding to my list. Yeah. It's all part of the community. I certainly enjoy reading all of your comments below. I'll leave some links to these. Some of those may be affiliate links. It just helps my channel so that I can continue to make content like this. I'll leave some of my social media links below. But for now, as always, stay safe, stay Moorlander, and stay EDC. And take a closer look. Probably should have had them in my pocket. Should have took them out of my pocket? Didn't want to drop them. There's 6 there, but I forgot to mention that bit. No, I think it was good enough. Oh, whoa! You know, I have to say,